If you understand this, the rest is simple. Thoughts are things. And when they are mixed with definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire, they translate into their physical and financial equivalent. The world does not reward those who merely want, it bows to those who demand with a psychological intensity that borders on obsession. Imagine a man named Edwin C. Barnes, standing in the shadow of a freight train, possessing nothing but a tattered suit and a heart filled with an audacious dream. He did not seek to work for the great Thomas Edison, he sought to become his business associate. This was the birth of the definite major purpose. Barnes arrived at the laboratory of the world's greatest inventor looking like a common tramp. But his mind was already vibrating with the frequency of partnership. Edison saw something in the silent determination of the young man's eyes, a quality of spirit that no amount of poverty could mask. Barnes was given a menial job, a test of his resolve. For 5 years, he labored in the periphery, unnoticed by the world but hyper-focused on his singular goal. Most people would have quit after the first year of sweeping floors, convinced that their dream was a delusion. But Barnes understood the law of incremental progress. When Edison invented the Ediphone, a machine his salesman believed was a redundant curiosity, Barnes seized the opportunity. He sold the machine so successfully that he eventually became Edison's distributor across the entire nation. He burned every bridge behind him, leaving no retreat, no safety net, and no plan B. He had entered the state of burning desire, where the subconscious mind has no choice but to manifest the reality it has been fed. The analysis of Barnes' journey reveals the first pillar of the Napoleon Hill philosophy, the transition from wishing to being. A wish is a weak, flickering candle in the wind of circumstance, but a burning desire is a furnace that consumes obstacles for fuel. To achieve the state of the alchemist of success, one must follow a rigid psychological protocol, define the exact amount of money desired, determine what will be given in return, establish a fixed date, create a definite plan, write it out in a clear statement, and read it aloud twice daily. This is not mere ritual, it is the programming of the subconscious. By saturating the mind with a specific image of wealth, the individual activates the reticular activating system, forcing the brain to recognize opportunities that were previously invisible. Wealth is not a product of luck, it is a byproduct of a mind that has been hypnotized by its own purpose. The narrative shifts from the furnace of desire to the ether of the unseen. Introducing the archetype of faith. Faith is the head chemist of the soul. When mixed with thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks up the vibration, translates it into its spiritual equivalent, and transmits it to infinite intelligence. Consider the story of the great industrialist Charles M. Schwab and the formation of the United States Steel Corporation. It began with a speech, not a ledger or a balance sheet, but a vision articulated with such profound conviction that it catalyzed the merger of the world's most powerful steel interests. Schwab possessed the faith of the builder. He did not look at the limitations of the current market, he looked at the potential of a unified empire. This represents the second major lesson. Faith is a state of mind that may be induced, or created, by affirmation or repeated instructions to the subconscious mind. You are the master of your fate because you have the power to influence your own subconscious. Most people fail because they allow the shadow of doubt to occupy their mental real estate. They broadcast poverty consciousness and wonder why the universe reflects back a reality of scarcity. To grow rich, one must develop success consciousness, which is the deliberate cultivation of a mind that expects and recognizes abundance as its natural right. This leads the narrative into the dark laboratory of autosuggestion. No thought, whether it be negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of autosuggestion. It is the gatekeeper of the temple. The story describes the mind as a fertile garden. If you do not plant seeds of your own choosing, the wind will blow in the seeds of weeds, and the weeds will take over. The protagonist of this segment is the individual who learns to use the power of the word. By repeatedly affirming their goal with deep emotion, they bypass the critical filters of the conscious mind and reach the engine room of existence. The analysis here is vital. The subconscious does not distinguish between constructive and destructive thought impulses. It works with the material we feed it. If you feed it fear of failure, it will dutifully build a life of failure. If you feed it the unwavering image of the millionaire self, it will reorganize your habits, your energy, and your interactions to bring that image to life. Autosuggestion is the bridge between the limited human ego and the infinite power of the collective unconscious. The narrative then explores the illusion of specialized knowledge. Most people believe that knowledge is power. This is where they go wrong. Knowledge is only potential power. It becomes real power only when it is organized into definite plans of action and directed to a definite end. The story of Henry Ford being called an ignorant pacifist by a newspaper serves as the ultimate debunking of this myth. During a libel suit, Ford was peppered with questions about history and philosophy. Finally, exasperated, he pointed to the buttons on his desk and said that he could summon men who could answer any question he had. So why should he clutter his mind with general knowledge when he had the ability to organize the specialized knowledge of others? Ford was a master of the synthesis. He understood that the truly educated man is not one who has a head full of facts, but one who knows where to get the knowledge when he needs it and how to organize that knowledge into plans of action. The lesson here is the power of organization. To grow rich, you do not need to be a genius in every field, you need to be a conductor of the orchestra. You must possess the ability to assemble the necessary expertise and direct it toward your singular, burning goal. The narrative momentum builds as we enter the workshop of the mind, which is the imagination. It is the place where all plans are created. There are two forms of this faculty: synthetic imagination, which rearranges old ideas into new combinations, and creative imagination, which is the antenna of the soul, receiving inspirations from infinite intelligence. The story of the creation of the Coca-Cola formula is a classic example. It wasn't just a recipe for a drink, it was an idea that was mixed with imagination. A druggist sold the secret for $500, but the buyer mixed it with the gold of the mind, creating a global empire. The analysis emphasizes that ideas are the beginning of all fortunes. Ideas are products of the imagination. If you can see it in the mental workshop, you can hold it in your hand. The struggle of the modern worker is often a struggle of mechanical labor, but the success of the modern mogul is a success of imaginative planning. The script challenges the listener to dust off their imaginative faculties, which may have become dormant through years of routine, and to start dreaming in blueprints. This brings the narrative to the formation of the mastermind. No man can achieve great power and wealth without the cooperation of others. The mastermind is the coordination of knowledge and effort, in a spirit of harmony, between two or more people, for the attainment of a definite purpose. Andrew Carnegie attributed his entire fortune not to his own brilliance, but to his mastermind group. He surrounded himself with men who knew more about steel, finance, and marketing than he did. The psychological analysis of this principle reveals that when two minds join together, they create an invisible third mind, a psychic synergy that is greater than the sum of its parts. It is the multiplying effect of energy. To grow rich, you must abandon the lone wolf mentality and seek out a tribe of like-minded individuals who will sharpen your vision and amplify your reach. The story intensifies as it tackles the shadow of the quitter, exploring the principle of persistence. The 3 feet from gold story is perhaps the most famous in the annals of success. A man quit digging for gold just 3 feet before hitting one of the richest veins in Colorado because he lost his persistence. He sold his machinery to a junk man who sought the advice of a mining engineer, found the gold, and became a multimillionaire. The original miner learned a bitter but valuable lesson: I stopped because the going got tough. But from now on, I will never stop because someone says no. Persistence is a state of mind. Therefore it can be cultivated. It is based on the will to win. The analysis highlights that there is no substitute for persistence. It cannot be replaced by any other quality. Most people are good starters but poor finishers. The bridge between the dream and the reality is the relentless, daily application of effort in the face of temporary defeat. Success often hides just around the corner from the point where the average person gives up. As the first part of this continuous narrative concludes, the listener is left with the image of the integrated seeker. You are no longer just a person wishing for a better life, you are a mental scientist learning the laws of the universe. The foundation has been laid: desire, faith, autosuggestion, specialized knowledge, imagination, and persistence. These are the tools of the mind alchemist. The story of your success is not written in the stars, but in the neural pathways of your own brain. The transition from poverty to wealth is not a physical journey, but a psychological shift in vibration. You must first become the person you wish to be in your mind before the world will allow you to hold the gold in your hand. The narrative descends into the engine room of human achievement, confronting the primal force of transmutation. If the previous stages were the architecture of the goal, this is the fuel. Hill presents the controversial yet profound principle of sex transmutation, an archetypal exploration of the creative energy that drives the species. This is the alchemical fire. The narrative describes the most successful men in history, the Napoleons, the Shakespeares, the Edisons, as individuals who possessed a highly developed sex nature but learned to redirect that potent, raw energy away from physical expression and toward the great work. They understood that the vibration of sexual desire is the most powerful stimulus of the mind. When this energy is harnessed and channeled through the imagination, it elevates the individual to the level of a genius. The analysis of this principle reveals a deep psychological truth: the same energy that creates life has the power to create empires. Most people dissipate this energy through impulsive, short-term gratification, leaving their mental battery drained. But the master of success treats this energy as a sacred reserve. By transmuting it, they achieve a state of superconsciousness where the brain functions at a higher frequency, becoming a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibrations of infinite intelligence. This is not about repression, but about redirection. It is the transition from the animal self to the inspired self. The script portrays the individual standing at the helm of their own biology, no longer a slave to their instincts, but a commander of their most potent internal resource. The story then transitions into the deep, echoing chambers of the subconscious mind, the connecting link between the finite mind of man and the infinite intelligence. The narrative describes the subconscious as a vast, silent ocean that is always in motion, day and night. It does not argue, it simply accepts the blueprints provided by the conscious mind. It is the intermediate station where the seed of thought is nurtured into the fruit of reality. The protagonist of this segment is the one who learns the liturgy of the positive. Hill insists that the subconscious is more sensitive to emotionally charged thoughts. You cannot reach it with cold, mechanical words, you must speak to it in the language of feeling. The analysis highlights the 7 major positive emotions: desire, faith, love, sex, enthusiasm, romance, and hope, and warns against the 7 major negative emotions: fear, jealousy, hatred, revenge, greed, superstition, and anger. To grow rich, you must conduct a psychological exorcism, purging the negatives so that only the constructive vibrations reach the deep self. As the continuous narrative flows, we encounter the mystery of the brain, described as a radio broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of thought. This is the archetype of the receiver. Every human brain is capable of picking up the thought vibrations which are being released by other brains. This concept predates modern quantum physics but echoes the idea of a collective consciousness or a non-local field of information. The story follows the individual as they sharpen their mental antenna through the practice of the mastermind. When a group of minds vibrates in harmony, they tune into a frequency of ideas that are unavailable to the isolated ego. The lesson here is the power of resonance. To achieve wealth, you must align your internal frequency with the frequency of abundance. If you broadcast lack and limitation, you will receive more of the Kung. The narrative momentum intensifies as we reach the pinnacle of the Hill philosophy, the 6th sense. This is the temple of wisdom, the apex of the pyramid. It is the creative imagination matured into a state of direct knowing. The story describes Hill's own practice of invisible counselors, a mental ritual where he convened a meeting with the archetypal figures he admired most: Lincoln, Emerson, Paine, Darwin, and Ford. In the boardroom of his mind, he sought their advice on difficult problems, and eventually, these mental projections began to take on a life of their own, providing insights and warnings that felt like inspirations from the beyond. The analysis of the 6th sense reveals it as the point where the seeker becomes the adept, It is the realization that you are never truly alone and that the universe is a sentient, supportive field of intelligence waiting to be consulted. This is the birth of intuition, the quiet voice that speaks when the ego chatter is silenced. However, the path to this temple is guarded by the 6 ghosts of fear. The narrative takes a dark, somber turn as it describes the sentinels of the abyss, the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of love, the fear of old age, and the fear of death. These are the psychological blockades that prevent the manifestation of wealth. The story depicts the ghost of poverty as the most paralyzing. It is the great inhibitor that keeps millions in a state of quiet desperation. The analysis provides a diagnostic of the soul, challenging the listener to identify which ghost is haunting their own mental house. Fear is nothing more than a state of mind, and a state of mind is subject to control and direction. To grow rich, you must perform a total mental decolonization, reclaiming your psyche from the fears that society, parents, and the media have planted within you. The script then introduces the 7th basic evil, which is susceptibility to negative influences. This is the open door through which the germs of failure enter. The narrative describes the mind as a fortress that must be guarded with relentless vigilance. You must develop a mental immune system that rejects the viruses of negativity from friends, relatives, and the environment. This is the power of the no. The lesson is that your environment is constantly shaping your destiny, and if you do not consciously choose your influences, they will choose you. To achieve the millionaire mindset, you must be willing to be misunderstood and criticized by the herd. You must possess the sovereignty of the self. The story concludes its journey through the labyrinth of the mind by returning to the unity of the principles. They are not separate tools, but a single alchemical process. Desire is the seed, faith is the soil, autosuggestion is the water, imagination is the sun, persistence is the cultivation, and the mastermind is the harvest. The narrative emphasizes that the gold is not the end goal, the transformation of the person is the true treasure. You do not get rich, you become rich. The physical wealth is merely the shadow cast by the grown soul. The analysis of the entire philosophy reveals it as a manual for godhood, a reminder that the human mind has the capacity to shape matter according to its will. As this second part of the continuous narrative draws to a close, the listener is standing at the precipice of total integration. You have seen the architecture of the mind, from the primal heat of the body to the silent whispers of the 6th sense. You have faced the ghosts of fear and learned the laws of resonance. The transition is almost complete. You are no longer a victim of circumstances, but a vibration master. The final part of the script will reveal the hidden secret that ties all these principles together into a single, unstoppable force for the creation of reality. The final movement of the Hill philosophy brings us to the albedo, the state of purification and absolute clarity. If you have followed the narrative thus far, you realize that the gold promised by the title is not merely a collection of coins, but a state of total psychic integration. The narrative now centers on the hidden secret that Andrew Carnegie challenged Napoleon Hill to find, a secret that is woven into the very fabric of the 13 principles but is never explicitly named. It is the realization that the mind is a spiritual magnet that attracts the vibrations of its dominant thoughts. This is the law of harmonious resonance. The story describes the final transformation of the seeker. You no longer chase wealth, you become the center of gravity that draws wealth toward you. This is the transition from the striving ego to the attracting self. The analysis of this final stage reveals that the true meaning of Think and Grow Rich is the mastery of the self. The 13 principles are not just a checklist for a business plan, they are the rungs of a ladder leading out of the cave of scarcity and into the light of abundance. The story concludes with the archetype of the individual as a creator. Hill emphasizes that the only thing in the entire universe over which you have absolute control is the power of your own thoughts. To surrender this power to fear, to the opinions of the herd, or to the ghosts of the past is the ultimate tragedy. To harness this power is the ultimate triumph. The richness of your life is the external reflection of the richness of your internal dialogue. The core message that Napoleon Hill intends to convey is that success is a choice, made one thought at a time. It is a philosophy of radical mental responsibility. The book teaches that poverty and wealth are both offspring of the mind. Poverty is the result of a mind that is open to negative vibrations, while wealth is the result of a mind that has been deliberately closed to the negative and open to the infinite. The narrative arc of the book is a journey from mental slavery to financial and spiritual sovereignty. It asserts that you are the master of your fate and the captain of your soul precisely because you have the power to control your mind. In the final reckoning, the stories of Ford, Edison, and Carnegie serve as a collective proof of concept. They were not men of superhuman ability, they were men of superhuman focus. They understood that a mind occupied with a single, definite purpose is the most powerful force on the planet. The lesson for the modern reader is to stop looking for secrets outside of themselves and to start the great work within. The gold is already there, buried under the layers of doubt and social conditioning. The 13 principles are the tools you use to unearth it. The journey ends not with a destination, but with a new way of being. The Think and Grow Rich philosophy is a bridge across the chasm of could have been, leading you to the reality of is. It is a call to awaken the giant within and to realize that the universe is not a hostile void, but a vast, intelligent substance that responds to the commands of a disciplined will. The gold in your hand is merely the shadow cast by the light of your own transformed consciousness. You have the map, you have the tools, and you have the power. The only question remains, what will you choose to think today? Every man is what he is because of the dominating thoughts which he permits to occupy his mind.